Sigmund Freud was an Austrian neurologist and founder of psychoanalysis. He is a very controversial figure in psychology. Nevertheless, he first introduced the concept of anaclitic relationships. In Freud's theory of object relations, anaclitic needs refer to those tied to dependency on others for love and support. So you can imagine that anaclitic depression comes up when those relationships or ties are cut or when they are absent. The word anaclitic means leaning upon or dependent on. Later in the 1940s, the term Anaclitic Depression was actually coined by René Spitz. Spitz was a psychoanalyst and researcher who observed infants in institutional settings. I'll elaborate more on René Spitz in just a bit, but fair warning, I will be showing some crying babies. If you're uncomfortable with that, I would highly recommend that you skip this portion of the video.
This condition can manifest through symptoms such as withdrawal, apathy, weight loss, sleep disturbances, and developmental delays. It can cause motor retardation and proclivity to illness, but this is especially the case if there was severe neglect. The symptoms of this form of depression can be mirrored in adults who lack nurturing social connections and went through a similar emotional deprivation seen in infants. So, what are some examples of anaclitic depression? People who experience prolonged solitary confinement can experience anaclitic depression. Long-term hospitalization can also cause anaclitic depression. People who experience maternal deprivation or disturbed emotional attachment in early childhood development can experience anaclitic depression.
René Spitz, with the help of Catherine Wolfe, studied infants who were separated from their primary caregivers, usually their mothers, for extended periods, often in orphanages or hospitals. I will be showing you clips associated with his studies. As you can see in the video, before the mommies get taken away, you can tell that the babies are responding well to the adults in the room. They're playful and willing to interact. This work laid the groundwork for attachment theory. It's cited in discussions about early childhood care, hospital practices, foster care, and orphanages. And although his studies were criticized for methodological limitations, it still powerfully influenced the shift from institutional to family-based or foster care models. It also influenced policies on parental presence in hospitals and the understanding that emotional neglect is as damaging as physical neglect. I sped up the upcoming videos, but I wanted to show you how the babies become distressed when their mothers get taken from them. Rather than expressing friendliness, they cry in anguish to express their frustration. I will also show you how these two babies interact with others when their mothers finally return. While that's playing, I also want to expand on the idea that this form of depression can be mirrored in adults, not just infants. As we learned, the word anaclitic means to lean upon. When we do not have a social network, community, or individuals who we can lean upon, we may begin to experience anaclitic depression. This is why people who have been hospitalized for long periods of time may develop anaclitic depression. I also want to point out that incarcerated people can be put on solitary confinement for reasons other than breaking prison rules, including disease-related outbreak quarantines, overcrowding, for misconduct of others, protective custody, etc. Psychoanalysts sometimes use anaclitic depression more broadly to describe depression tied to loss, abandonment, or disrupted attachment relationships. I think immigrants or people that migrate to a new place of living and who are not socially acclimated in their new state can find themselves experiencing the type of isolation that leads to anaclitic depression. Another example is if you are not close with your family, but you live with them. Interacting with the people you live with on a superficial or shallow level can still render something along the lines of anaclitic depression because there's no authentic emotional attachment. YouTubers, social media influencers, and even your social network on Instagram and or other social media platforms cannot substitute for real connection. If you don't resonate with the culture in your vicinity, you may need to actively seek community outside of your immediate sphere of influence. Thanks to online face-to-face video and audio technology, you can resort to online interaction with people if going outside is not an option for you. I assume that the prolonged use of digital devices might foster anaclitic depression in children of Generation Alpha, teenagers, and adults who spend a considerable amount of time on their desktops, phones, and tablets. That's especially true if you consider that parents themselves can be addicted to their devices just as much as they let their kids be. If this description sounds like you and you are experiencing depression because there's nobody around you that you are emotionally dependent on, it could mean that it's time to make the effort to find communities or people you resonate with. It might take more than one try to find your tribe, and that's okay. Don't give up. Humans are meant to share time with others. And again, depending on your biology, psychology, and sociology, you may or may not be predisposed to anaclitic depression.